We're back on the road to City Hall. The 25th City Council District in Queens encompasses what is known as one of the most ethnically diverse populations in the city. Nearly half the people living there were born in other countries. Our Michael Scotto reports on a tough three-way battle for a city council seat in the district that includes Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, and Corona.
On this street in Jackson Heights, you'll find what many consider to be the best Indian food in the city. And just blocks away, it's as if you traveled across the world to restaurants in Latin America. It's this diversity that's driving two Democrats in a quest to unseat City Councilwoman Helen Sears, who for 4 years has represented what is considered the most diverse community in the entire country.
You guys are voted. We're having a very important election coming up September 13th.
Part Jamaican and part Burmese, Bryan is considered Sears' toughest challenger. The lawyer and immigrant rights advocate has raised more than $70,000 and received the endorsement of the New York Times. He says Sears hasn't listened to the needs of the residents, pointing to her opposition to a controversial lead paint bill.
A lot of people are telling me, Bryan, we want you to run because there's a vacuum in that leadership. And so I am running to make sure that we have a government that's truly reflective of the community's needs.
Sometimes it's difficult to capitalize on the diversity of this district. That's because many people who live here aren't citizens and therefore not eligible to vote. But Sears' challengers, including Rodolfo, Flores, are trying hard to make an impact. The Peruvian immigrant is back after an unsuccessful run in 2001.
This district, 25, is more than 70 ethnic groups. And we need to work with each specific neighborhoods. And Helen Sears is not doing that.
But Sears says the criticism is typical election year rhetoric.
When you look at it, what do insurgents have to say about an incumbent? They have to say either she's doing nothing, has no sensitivity to anything, and does not meet the needs of the people. All three of those are absolutely untrue.
She points to community meetings she's held and her winning fight to block Walmart from opening a store in Queens as proof that she's an active lawmaker. 4 years ago, Sears won by a slim margin. Now she is a well-known incumbent with a base of support among all the different groups that make up her district. It's a combination that could make her tough to beat on Election Day. Michael Scotto on the road to City Hall.
And we now welcome the three Democrats running to represent the 25th City Council District. Here with us tonight, the incumbent Helen Sears and challengers Bryan and Rodolfo Flores. Thank you all for joining us through a somewhat scientific method of guessing a number under the table. We've just determined tonight's order. We're going to start, Ms. Sears, with you. And one of the things I've noticed about your district is about half the people there are foreign-born, a very low voter registration in the district, only about a third of the people in that district. I'll ask each of you, Ms. Sears, starting with you, what you do and what your challengers would do to be inclusive for the entire community where there are 40 different languages that are spoken.
Well, first, thank you very much. It's good to be back on NY1. My district is the most diverse in the country, the most diverse. And what we have done has been a bridge builder, and I have a reputation for doing that. We managed, there's a common thread throughout that district, and we managed to work with every group. We're fair, we provide all of the services that are needed, and then some. And we also assess the needs of every group. As a result, we have a community that's so diverse, and to address those needs and to service them in the 3.5, almost 4 years that I've been in office has been a very successful achievement.
I should note, Ms. Sears, you've been endorsed by labor unions, but Mr. Pufolks, you have what is the highly coveted New York Times endorsement. I'll ask you the same question. In such a diverse district, if you became the councilman, what would you do to make sure that everybody there has a voice, including the 2/3 of people who don't even vote?
First, let me thank you, Davidson and NY1, for hosting this debate. I think it's very important. And we received the New York Times endorsement because I believe, in part, I have not just a vision and an action plan, but I have a history of working with immigrant communities and building bridges between the immigrant communities and communities that have long and deep roots in all the neighborhoods that make up District 25. We have had town hall meetings that are culturally competent and linguistically competent, meaning we've reached out to people from, we reached out to many communities with people who speak the language language and understand the culture. Our meetings have been simultaneously translated into the various languages that make up District 25. So we need a council member that can continue with that kind of direction, that kind of vision, and that kind of action plan. I've been reaching out to immigrant communities through the organization that I founded over 7 years ago, New Immigrant Community Empowerment. As a human rights commissioner, I've reached out to many communities, and so we will have linguistically competent meetings.
I'm just going to cut you off now just to give some time to
Sure,
make sure people have somewhat equal time here. Mr. Flores, you don't have any of the big endorsements. You have very little campaign cash. I'm curious what you think your chances are in this race and what you would do, again, if you were to become the councilman, in terms of making sure that everybody in the district has a voice.
Well, thanks for being here. I'm very glad that you asked me the questions, but let me tell you, I consider myself to be the most qualified candidate, not only because of my educational background as a social worker with MSW, but also my community experience, which has led me to work with many ethnic groups in District 25 for almost 24 years. District 25, for more than 25 years, I know and I understand my communities, their needs and concerns. In addition, I count with a well-qualified team of people who are prepared and ready to enhance our community. Besides that, I will work, if I'm elected, from the moment I got elected and not when the elections are approaching us.
Mr. Flores,
It's
as you know,
time
the
for
ground rules were no opening statements, and I know you have one there. I appreciate your remarks.
It's not. It's one of my remarks that I have.
I appreciate your remarks on what you would do to be inclusive, and I'll just move on now around the table. Mr. Pufolks, the first question of the next round, going to you. If you became councilman, what would your first bill be? What would your top priority be?
I would have as a top priority making sure that we keep the neighborhood clean, safe, and healthy. I would work to make sure that we lower emissions of vehicles, city-owned vehicles.
What would the first bill be?
The first bill would be to make sure that we have more hybrid taxis. I don't know if that would necessarily be my first bill, but one of the first priorities would be to make sure that we have a cleaner environment. And we have a district that is surrounded by the Long Island Expressway.
So nothing specific for your district. Your top priority would be hybrid taxis just for the whole city.
For the district, we need to well, for the city, but we need to make sure, because District 25 is a neighborhood which has many taxi cabs throughout the district. And so we are very concerned about high emissions. We're very concerned about a lot of pollution. And so one of the things that I would make sure as a city council member is that we have a cleaner environment, and that would be not just through taxis, but through many other measures and to clean up the environment in the district.
Mr. Flores, if you became the councilman, your first bill, your top priority for your district?
Educations.
What would the first bill be?
Well, District 25 is one of the most multicultural districts, and I believe that we need well-qualified bilingual teachers to work with mostly immigrants. What I want to do is I'm trying to introduce a bill in the city of New York, working with the Board of Educations to have not only Spanish-speaking professionals, not only educational system, also in the health system. As you are well aware.
So the first bill would be to do what?
To hire bilingual professionals in our system.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Ms. Sears, the same question to you. If you win a second term, your top priority for your second term and the first bill you would introduce?
The first bill that I believe that I would introduce would be to make the advantages for the small business community, to streamline the agencies that involve the licenses. Right now, that small community, that business community, has to go through several agencies in order to do anything. We need to streamline, we need to modify the licensing procedure, we need to make it more amenable.
Specifically, what would that bill do?
What that bill would do to be, hopefully, to consolidate, not to have the small business community have to go from one agency to another.
Which would you eliminate?
In order to do that. I don't think it's a question of eliminating one. I think it may have to do with taking away some of the responsibilities and including that, for instance, Department of Consumer Affairs, the Buildings Department. So we need to take from there, extract, and have a bill that makes each one of them function better for each of them.
Let's move right along now to the chance where you each have a chance to ask one of your opponents a question. And Mr. Flores, the deal was that you get to go first with that question. Who is your opponent that you'd like to ask a question of, and what is your question?
I would like to ask a question to Mrs. Sears. Mrs. Sears, I don't think the constituents on District 25 are aware of what I'm going to say. You've been the chair.
What is the question, please?
You've been the chair of the Standards and Ethics Committee. How is it that you have permitted to allocate campaign funds toward your family members? Not only this year, but also in the past years.
Okay, that's the question.
I would be happy
Let's
to
have
answer
Ms. Sears
that.
answer the question.
That is a campaign finance issue, and there is no law in the campaign finance law that says you can't do that. I have a great campaign manager, and I have a great treasurer. In terms of my being chair of the conflicts of the standards and ethics, that's an internal issue, and we deal with the issues that are within our council itself. We have passed the rules. We have passed the laws for the Campaign Finance Board. There is not one piece in that law that says you cannot have a member of your family. I'm getting a good deal. So are the taxpayers, because they're not even at market value of what they're doing.
Ms. Sears, you now have the chance to ask one of your opponents a question.
Mr. Flores, you have stated that you feel the seniors need more than basically, what do you feel is missing that they're not getting, considering the fact that there isn't a senior center that has been closed? We have
you have to leave the
sponsored
question
millions.
just as a question, not a statement.
Okay.
The first thing that I want to do is I want to enhance the quality of service that the city is doing, because I believe those senior centers, in some way or the other, they fought for me when I was a child. In some way or the other, they enhanced my life. Now it's chance for me to provide better services within the agency in the service and DC 25. And I believe I have better background, I am most qualified to work with the entire city, and specifically DC 25, because I'm an immigrant too.
And Mr. Pufolks, it's now your chance to ask one of your opponents a question.
Rodolfo, do you support Helen Sears' vote on the lead paint prevention bill, yes or no?
No.
All right, with about a minute left, I'd like to ask each of you, beginning with you, Mr. Pufolks, just to describe what you think the greatest issue, not that you necessarily deal with by law, but what the greatest issue in your district is, and what you think, not necessarily by law, but by leadership, you can help to have an effect on.
Right. Thank you for that question. There are a number of issues. I mentioned a little bit in the last question about the environment. We are number 50 out of 51 in parks and playgrounds. We need a council member who's going to better maintain parks and help to secure more park space. That's one top issue.
I hate to cut you off, but we got to stick with just that one because we're limited to time. Ms. Sears, same thing to you. Not something that you would do through a law necessarily, but through leadership in the district.
Through leadership in the district. Remember, I came into the city council civically involved, achieved a lot of community work, and I came in as a professional. What I wish to achieve, I will do more of what I have done, but to achieve the next thing is to broaden and to enhance the health care that is essential in this district.
Okay, then Mr. Flores, the same question to you. Just through leadership, not through your powers on the council, but through being a leader in the community, what would you try to accomplish?
The first thing that I want to do is I want to have a meeting with all community leaders, not only with Hispanics, not only with Anglo-Saxons, but with all entire community, and try to work with them, try to tell them what's the concern needs that they have. I'm very sure I can guarantee to you that we're going to have plenty of issues, and I'm going to fight for them.
Rodolfo Flores, Bryan Pufolks, Helen Sears, thank you to all three of you for joining us for this debate.
Yeah.
Good luck to all of you.
Thank
11
you.
days till primary day.
Thank
for
you
being
very
with us.
much.
It's now time for a quick break. Our Friday Reporters Roundtable is up next.